Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard.
Welcome back to Stogie Geeks, episode 261. This is volume 2. I'm your host, Joe Hozempa, filling in this week for Paul. Got our co-host over here, Joe D, filling in. How's it going, sir?
Good, man. Playing through. I'm under the weather a little bit, but I'm here.
You're still here. You, like I said, you need to take
play through.
You need to take a 2 or 3 day hiatus.
You're either the world's worst hypochondriac,
Yes.
or you need to be hospitalized immediately.
Both.
Yeah. you need to keep all of that over there, Jake.
Yeah.
Jake, if you need to squeeze,
That's why you took that chair.
Scooch over there, yeah.
You walked in the room, you're just boom right there.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning into the show, thank you for joining us. If you've listened to the first segment, we got a little inside stuff that we got to talk to you about in regards to that segment. Originally, we were going to have a much bigger time constraint or a much bigger timeline in order for us to have our interview with Phil. And as we were going through some technical stuff, as you know, the Wi-Fi isn't 100% the best in the Dominican. Then we had some other technical stuff going down. And then we all, as we were all talking, Joe D, myself, and Phil, we realized that we weren't talking the same time zone. Right? We're just you know, you gotta admit when you know,
happens.
Stogie Geeks cannot go international.
No. We I want to let the listener know, because you know, as the host of episode 261, they got to know, like, what was that I just watched?
Yeah.
Because if I hosted Stogie Geeks and watched that, I'd be asking, you know, I would be saying, if I watched it, I'd be like, what was that?
What just happened?
What just happened? And, you know, it's
A little taste of more to come.
Well, no, honestly, it's a taste of let's be candid with the audience, right? Yeah. Let's be candid with the audience. We were so involved in doing our show prep in time and questions and dialogue for the show, and as you can tell, that we were going to talk a little bit about the future of his company, a little bit about where he came from, introduce some of the newer Stogie Geeks listeners to who he is, if you don't know who he is already.
Right.
And then we were going to have a really strong boxing component for the Stogie Geek episode, and then it was there. But we all forgot to ask one question. Were we talking about Eastern Standard Time or his time? And more importantly, he had a previous appointment, so that's why his time turned into to me, it was an infomercial.
You're a busy man.
You know,
He's a busy cat.
Busy man.
To me, it was an infomercial.
Beautiful thing. Stogie Geeks listeners can go back and Stogie Geeks archives.
You know what, the bottom line takeaway is this. Phil's a great guy.
Yep.
The cigars are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That Daybreak has totally changed his world, I think, because even that Habano, you could put it in a Connecticut smoker's hands, just because that cigar is so good and is so easy to smoke.
Agreed.
But I think now that Daybreak, if you never had one, go and find one. It's a total game changer. Mm-hmm. So if you're not familiar with Debonair, you gotta find a shop, because once you smoke one, you never go back.
Okay, so let me not to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot. You have experience with that cigar?
Absolutely.
Take the Stogie Geeks listener through that cigar. You don't have to worry about
there's,
if you know Rapper Binder Filler, cool. Like, you know what I mean? But, you know, take us through, like, you know.
Binder Filler is a little bit different. But I mean,
when you were introduced to it, how you got introduced to it specifically, and take the listener to
I was introduced to it a few years ago, actually. Paul had a dinner with Phil there, and I had never even heard of Debonair. I had no idea what was going on. And
Okay, for the listeners, Paul Joyle.
yes,
correct?
Paul Joyle.
Paul Joyle of
the one, the only Paul Joyle of Mr. J's Savannah Shop, and he invited me to come down, and I wound up going to the dinner and met Phil and smoked the cigars and said, "Wow, this is good. Those cigars are on a different level than a lot of others. I mean, they're what other cigar companies try to get to, and Phil's just blows the doors off everything he does, and he's just so easy to talk to and so easy to hang out with, and
There's certainly no misses. For his initial couple of offerings to be that standalone and tasty as hell. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you see these big companies that come up with a new blend every day. He's only got the 3 lines of Debonair. He's got, even up until recently, it was just the 2. It was the Habano and the Maduro.
Right.
And now that he's got that Connecticut, he covers all smokers. And I'd rather you come out with 1 good cigar every few years than pump out 5 good cigars in a year and 10 that are and then another 5 that wind up for $2 a piece on CI.
Do what you do and do it the right way.
Yeah. That's the thing. If you're going to do something, do it all the way, do it well. And that's what Phil's always done. He takes a lot of pride in what he does.
You had mentioned too that those first 3 years, relentless, efforts, just all basically all on his shoulders, getting out there, and took a little bit of time away. And now he's brought back that resurgence, ready to hit the market again and be more visible in interviews and certainly back up that Daybreak.
Yeah. And that's when I heard he was going with Drew, I was very, very excited for him because that's going to open up
Huge
a
move.
whole new world of smokers to Debonair. And it like I said, it kind of struck me funny because Phil Zangi is so easy and so relaxed, and Jonathan Drew is so not. I don't think Jonathan Drew sleeps. I'm pretty sure he's a vampire and he just takes like 20-minute naps all
Complete
day.
odd couple status.
And then wakes up and goes, "Oh shit, I had a dream. I got to do this." And then goes to like a whiteboard in his bedroom and starts writing things down.
It's probably a good observation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've met Jonathan.
Yes.
Yeah, it is literally like being in a pinball machine and watching the pinball bounce around. So it's kind of like that's a sitcom. That's the Odd Couple right there. Is Phil and John hanging out, but they're both great guys and they're both very passionate about what they do, and that's why I think it was a great pairing because their passion matches each other.
You know what I think that's interesting about the relationship too? If you take character, like we've only had a chance to interview Phil today for a limited amount of time, but if there was one takeaway from that short interview was the fact that he generally seems a man of character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he concentrates on or seems to concentrate. I don't want to speak for him, but he seems to concentrate on stuff that's important to him.
Yeah.
Family, work-life balance. I think his resume. Had we had more time, I wanted to go into more of the beginning findings of his resume and how it morphed into Debonair and what he's currently doing with Debonair and potentially the future of that and kind of predictions of what he I don't want to say expects from the relationship, but I'm going to say it because this is a one-sided conversation. Right. So what he expects from that relationship with Drew to take it to the next level.
I'm thinking exposure. Exposure is big, and
absolutely.
The online, social media presence of Drew Estate, certainly that culture there.
And having met him and known him 4 or 5 years ago and seeing where he is now, I'm so happy for him. He's really crushing it.
And
he
then,
really is.
And then Jake, you brought up a good point in the beginning of this segment where he tends to take his time when he's producing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you said, I'm quoting here, better to produce a good 2 blends and then work on a third one than just start spitting out blends.
Well, especially now because everybody's so afraid of the FDA. Everybody's trying to get these new cigars out as fast as they can, and some of them just aren't ready. They're just not perfectly perfected, and Phil's not going to release a cigar because he's one of those people that really cares about the people that smoke his cigar, and he wants you to have the best experience you possibly can with it. So he's not going to put out something that isn't ready.
Yeah, in business they say that you can go you can go far or wide with your product. So you can go far, meaning you can have 10 blends, produce them, pump them out.
Yep.
shops order 8 of the 10 blends, 5 come in.
Yeah.
There's a rigmarole with that. Some companies are more notorious with that than others. Or you can go wide and try to have your product go a little bit deeper and cater to the palate and have less offerings, but potentially
Right.
better quality, better stick.
Phil spoke on the initial point of the interview there. Just the small amount of retail partners that were really on board with him and the movement initially, and he didn't try and flood the market and oversaturate. He's trying to do it the right way.
Yeah, because whenever you sell cigars, you really have to develop a partnership between the shops you're working with and your company.
Cultivate that following.
And I'd rather personally, if I own my own cigar company, have a great relationship with a few people.
Absolutely.
Than have a bad relationship with a lot of people, because that's really what helps you build your brand better, I think, at least.
Yep,
And
create those strongholds.
even though Phil's line isn't this massive line of 9 million different things, he's got the Daybreak, which is the Connecticut, which is great for a mild smoker.
Yep.
The Habano is still my favorite, the thing that he's ever done. That Habano, medium body, it's got a little spice on the finish, but nothing insane. It's easy to smoke. It's got a very luxurious feel to it. And then that Maduro, you get a little power with it. It's everything he makes is good.
For me, the Indian with the just really nice leathery components. That's something
that Maduro is fantastic, and great price points on those too.
Great price point. It just feels right. It's a good cigar all around.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Indian motorcycle stuff? Have you tampered with some of that?
I'm a big fan of the Indian stuff myself. Like I said, it's a lower price point, so it's really easy to pick up. It's not hard to get people to smoke them, just because it is that lower price point. So it's one of those where if you don't like it, you only spend $8-9 on it.
Sure.
But it's really impossible not to like.
Yeah.
Holds true a little bit more for me. With a little nostalgia with previously owning a Indian motorcycle. Myself.
Because you even said it. I started with Debonair. You started with Indian.
Right. Right. And it might have been the price point too. I saw the Indian out first, and that's probably my first love. But I've moved on to the Debonair as well. Now that Daybreak, it just ties it all together.
Yeah, that Daybreak was exactly what he needed to do, and he did it perfectly.
Yeah, I think he delivered it. I mean, is
I
really
had
not much more.
number 7 on my top 10 in 2017 last time I was here.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's the ideal business situation is if you can go through your channels for business with patience. Yeah. And persistence. And I think that in a short time you could definitely pick that up. That he was patiently persistent. Now he has this relationship where Drew is doing all of the distribution, right?
Yep.
And then from there, it's Drew. So it's Drew, and when you're dealing with Jonathan, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Well,
that was one of the reasons I was excited too, because now that he's with Drew, he's got Subculture Studios that could do all this crazy artwork for him and all this awesome stuff, and the promotion. Drew is the best cigar promoter on the face of the planet. They really are.
Yeah, they do a phenomenal job.
It's hard to argue otherwise. That's on the forefront right now.
And one other point I wanted to make with Phil, and we can definitely rehash that, is here on the Stogie Geeks show we interview a bunch of different people. And we have in studio guests, bunch of different guests, all different backgrounds. And, he's been through the technological barrier from selling cigars. What I mean by technological barrier is, pre-social media, pre-Facebook. Some of the boutiques now that come out have the luxury, or some of the new cigar owners of brands have the opportunity to, jump on that Facebook.
Absolutely.
I wanted to elaborate more on him with that. Like,
it's definitely much easier to get a hype behind your product now than it was.
Of course it is, and it's much easier, But I venture to say that from my experience in business, and his experience in business, that both of them probably address their certain limitations as well.
Yeah.
But I wonder what it would be like in a day now of marketing a brand or a blend or a cigar or a stick, whether it be one stick or a whole blend. I wonder what it would be like to go back to what it would be like pre-Facebook.
Yeah.
Because when I was doing my own reflection of his resume and doing that, he was selling cigars in a time where, we had 56K dial-up, right? Mm-hmm. We had 56K dial-up. Internet was...
Get off the phone. I got to check my email.
And where companies would flock to print publications.
Yeah.
And, so the timeline of, now via social media, we can go live into the factory if they choose to go live.
Yeah.
We can
Which
see
LFD's been great with doing lately. They've been having a lot of really cool videos coming out of their factory.
Yeah. See, we're going to spend some time and with the Stogie Geeks segment, we're going to kind of transition into that, you know, where, I wonder what it would be like to just, what were the expectations? I wonder, if the numbers were, a 5,000 box run was the max versus 10,000, or like what were those, and
Well, yeah, because a lot of people don't realize too, if you're coming out with a new cigar and you have another factory making it,
mm-hmm.
they require a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can just say, hey, let's make a few boxes of these and see what happens. It's no, you got to make 10,000 boxes of these, or it's not worth it for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big risk you take.
Yep.
You're putting a lot of money out, and you might not necessarily see it back because it could be a flop.
Mm-hmm. Now, he's worked on some other projects besides his stuff, correct?
Not really that I know of.
Okay.
I know he's been involved in the cigar business for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've just always been so focused on Debonair with him because
mm-hmm.
it really is just that good of a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had anybody send one back at my shop.
Mm-hmm.
I know that much. And it's one of those deals where once I get somebody smoking it, they ask for it again.
Sure.
Well, he was together with Rocky Patel on Indian Tobacco, and then it sold that his end of it back in 2002, and then reacquired again. I believe it was 2014.
Oh, that's right. He was originally with Indian.
Right, right. And because my experience with Phil back then, and this is where
you go way back, yeah.
This is where it comes about that, where the whole social media thing, when me and my partner owned a cigar shop in Providence, we didn't have Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't even have MySpace.
So you're just standing on the sidewalk going, come to the spot.
Shoulder to leg,
It was really, and then, we had the...
you did have an art division, though.
Well, yeah, we did.
His name's Sean O'Melia.
Right.
Nice.
We did have, experience with dealing with Indian tobacco and, the experience of selling it. And then, then all of a sudden you hear that cigar's not going to be on the market anymore. And you go, I think it was 2002?
Yeah, 2002.
So that was about the time that we closed the shop. So, for that, it wasn't like people came in flocking for him and then came in. But I remember...
Pretty sure those original blends went by the wayside, and they started totally fresh, I believe, in 2014 when he
Well, it's actually funny, too, because I have a photo. Well, I don't have it. A buddy of mine has a photo of him and Rocky Patel. I said, you know what? What's so important about that photo? He goes, well, that was the night we were in New York, and Rocky was talking about Indian and how he didn't know what the future of Indian was going to be. And I looked right at him and said, dude, everybody knows you from you doing this. Just call your brand Rocky Patel.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how Rocky Patel started.
Right. Yeah.
It went from Indian, and then everybody said, we know who Rocky Patel is now. Let's just call it Rocky Patel.
Yep.
Yeah. And obviously the Stogie Geeks listener should need no introduction to who that is.
No.
That's crazy.
Funny we're talking about. I'm going to a Rocky Patel event tonight.
Oh, really?
Paul Joyle over at local restaurant Melanzi's. Interesting.
Nice.
It's all tied together.
Nice. So how do you think social media is played? Let's tailor into that, and then I do want to get into. I want to talk to you a little bit about some cigar news of some consolidation that's been going on.
Yeah.
And I want to get your perspective, Jake's perspective, as the future of the industry.
Yeah,
if you want to go out 5-6 years, whatever you're comfortable with, like talk about how long you've been in the industry. Say that 10 times. How long you've been in the industry, what you've seen, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of your take on that. And I'm not putting you on the spot because every guest or every interview, if I'm the host, that's usually one of my kind of wrapping up questions with them.
Yeah.
Well,
it's funny. I was actually talking about the future of the industry last night. It's very uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at certain people are in certain groups are buying up a lot of the smaller guys.
Sure.
And there are actually a couple of online retailers who are now starting to buy retail locations.
Yes.
I mean, Cigar International itself are looking to start opening up 160 stores across the United States, whether they're calling them Casa de Monte Cristo or whatever they're calling them.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to make those purchases and go brick and mortar, which leads me to believe the online sales might fade a little bit. And that's what they believe is going to happen, because why would you spend all this money opening retail locations if you think your online business is going to survive? I think they're worried about tobacco taxes and sales tax and all that other stuff now affecting, because one of the reasons why a lot of people buy online is you don't have to pay the taxes. You just have to pay the shipping. But now if you're adding in all the taxes and the shipping, it doesn't become worth it to buy it online. You just go to your brick and mortar and get it.
It's interesting take. Dave Garofalo, friend of the show, his recent State of the Cigar Union address, he noted 60% of all sales, are online status, and but much of the consumers now are using that brick and mortar as like window shopping almost, coming in, little sample, but they're doing their box purchasing online. So see that cultivated together with the the online shops moving towards brick and mortar. It's pretty interesting.
It's very interesting, and outside of Stogie Geeks, I have a talk radio show as well, and it's called the Business Roundtable, and that is every week that comes up, whether I interview someone or like online has put such a huge damper. Positive or negative, depends, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just the cigar industry that's experiencing that. It's
absolutely.
It's so I have
look at Amazon. You can buy anything on Amazon.
I know.
You're totally naive to think that the cigar world, as small as it is, the cigar community that we live in now, would be removed from that. No, this is life, and across the broad spectrum of business, it plays itself out.
Yeah, it's across the board. But interesting that, like you said, Cigar International wants to open up some brick and mortars. Right?
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't necessarily be Cigar International locations, because Cigar International also owns the rights to Casa de Monte Cristo. They own the rights to Casa Fuente.
It's popping up everywhere.
They own General Cigars too.
Right.
They're huge. So they own a serious chunk of the cigar industry. So they could very easily come in and just start wiping people out if they really wanted to, which would suck. But at the same time, it could also be an opportunity.
I think also business-wise, they have a built-in audience.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if you have a customer who's used to shopping with you, monthly, daily, quarterly, whatever, yearly, whatever their buying frequency is, now you have a brick and mortar that they can walk into. It's a big game changer for local mom and pop shops.
Well, especially considering nobody knows what the FDA is going to do. If you look at a lot of the portfolio that somebody like General owns or somebody like Altadis owns, a lot of it is that pre-predicate, the pre-predicate cigars, which means they were released before the date that the FDA is looking at stopping new cigars from coming out.
Right.
So there are a lot of little guys that are now starting to take shelter. Like, even if you look at Phil's company wasn't huge, but now that he's withdrew, he has some insurance and he has some protection, because it would really hurt me personally to see that cigar go away.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of those cigars. So now I'm happy that a lot of those companies that are smaller, the smaller boutiques, are now getting the shelter they should have.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, social media,
huge
for the it's amazing.
It's everything.
For the Stogie Geeks listen, a couple things. Stogie Geeks out there, if you've had the experience with enjoying any of Phil Zangi cigars, you can email Joe H at StogieGeeks.com or Joe D and tell us about it for sure. We definitely want to hear from you.
Yeah.
There. But
Curious about the market penetration elsewhere in the country as well.
yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we know we pretty much have a handle on it. We know what's going on here in New England, but outside
Because I've
New
said it on
England,
the show before too. Like when you go, like when we had IPCPR in New Orleans, you go to New Orleans and you walk into one of the cigar shops in New Orleans. The stuff that's on their shelf is totally different than the stuff I have on mine.
right?
I mean, they're all cigars I'm still familiar with, but it's different to see how vastly different markets are.
Facing sizes, just region to region, very different animal.
oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. You're very active in social media,
Extremely.
and so if you could share with the Stogie Geeks listeners some brands that they should follow because they can get some pretty good knowledge. I think that'd be a good way to wrap up this segment.
Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Drew Estate obviously has the Drew Diplomat app. You get a lot of you can win some pretty cool prizes on
Are
the
you
Drew
active on
Diplomat
that?
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
The Drew Diplomat, it's almost kind of like Facebook for the Drew Estate people.
Sure.
So even if you're not a huge fan of Drew Estate, which I don't understand why you wouldn't be, definitely get the app. You can stay updated on what they're doing. They're very active on their Facebook.
An array of products, so you may not love it all, but there's probably something in there that's in the wheelhouse.
If there's not something in there that you love, then
right,
you don't love cigars.
there you go.
But they're very active on their Facebook. They're very good about it. Carlito's very, very active on his Facebook as well. So are Michael Herklotz with Nat Sherman, their Twitter. If you direct message them on Twitter, they get back to you instantly. Nat Sherman's very, very good with their social media as well. Actually, Nat Sherman just came out with 2 new sizes in the Sterling, too, which are fantastic.
Nice. You had mentioned LFT.
Yeah, LFD. So they've been doing these really cool. I mean, obviously, Lito's a really cool guy. Tony's awesome to hang out with, and he's awesome too. And they've been doing these great videos of the factory where they'll not even. I mean, obviously they got the Felix Gonzalez, their master roller. They got him rolling those Salomon Unicos. Those videos are insane, where he's putting like Batman logos on cigars and doing all this crazy shit. And then you've got the videos where they've got Lito just kind of walking around the factory on his or rolling around on his
Segway,
hoverboard Segway thing, whatever that is.
Yeah.
That one was funny.
Very cool.
But it's funny because they're doing these almost SNL like skit videos in the factory, which make you laugh and they're entertaining. But at the same time, you get to see
Beyond educational.
You get to see the color sorting table. You get to see the rollers. You get to see different parts of the factory that most people don't get to see unless they actually go.
I'd personally love to see more of that, man, and just give.
I'd love to see more companies do it.
Yeah, a little inside track to the listeners behind the scenes peek.
Yeah, I think that consumers in any industry, with the technological extravaganza that we're in, right? That's a good word, right?
Yeah.
With that, I think consumers of any industry want to see more.
Yeah.
And
more content, the better. Yeah.
And especially in an artisan industry like this, where it takes so much work to get to this end goal
for sure.
right here.
See, that's where I was going. And then peeling it back, especially in the cigar industry.
Yeah.
Whether you're a new smoker or whether you're an experienced smoker, I think that if you're a new smoker, you get excited and you really pick up the passion of sharing a cigar with friends or loved ones and celebrating that moment in time that you got to spend together. But
that's why events like even the Drew Estate Barn Smokers that they do, it's so cool to be able to go to that field and see the entire field of tobacco that you'll be smoking in 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And then, you have Henry and Willie that are walking you through all the different steps that they do, from planting the seed to color sorting to rolling to blending.
I'd like to piggyback on top of that, and then all that rich history and insight and education, but then to couple that with the backing of events and meeting some of these people that are in the industry and the faces of the franchise, that it can't help but just draw you in. You're an instant follower after that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Love the cigars and everything all encompassing, but then you get to meet these characters of the industry. And for the most part, my dealings all great, well-rounded people.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a negative experience. This is one of those industries where you actually can meet your heroes because there's not a bad one. The cigar industry is a very old school industry. It's still done on a handshake and a smile, and everybody's
Great point.
just happy to sit down and smoke a cigar and hang out.
Absolutely. I think I've met so many people within the industry, and probably, if I could guess, about 10 episodes back, Joe D and I did a segment of, other than selling cigars, because both of us have had experience in selling cigars, either on a broker level or on a retail level. Other than that, what other opportunities have cigars given us? And like Jody and I we were just rattling stuff off the top of our heads about those opportunities.
Yeah, it's a lot of networking. When you're sitting down just hanging out with people, you never know who you're going to meet. That's what I used to love about the little shop that was back on South Main Street when it was Sir Winstons and then Soma. You had literally the guy that mows the grass at Roger Williams Park to lawyers, doctors, politicians. Everybody went in there.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. We all had a cigar in our hand. We were all equal, and we all were having the same conversation.
Yeah.
The same events and places are going on, all across the country, and those little shops, and making memories, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I've often said, if the world could solve some problems over smoking a cigar, it'd be a much better place.
Yeah. Well, I still say that's the problem with politics today, is that nobody drinks anymore.
Yeah, and I've often said, if the world can all come together like we're about to, starting at the end of this week with the Olympics, the world will be a much better place. Right? You know what I mean? There
are a lot of problems that can be solved by being locked in a room with a bottle of bourbon and a box of cigars.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
Absolutely. Industry. How long have you been in it? And what changes have you seen within your experience?
Yeah.
And then let's give our predictions a little bit, stepping outside. Let's try to leave FDA out of it.
Yeah.
Because I am.
It's looking favorable.
I have always said, and I've always said, when that whole FDA was introduced to me, when I had my local radio show on a AM radio station, and then when I made the transition here as co-host of Stogie Geeks, so it's been now a span of 3 years now having this conversation. I honestly think that it's gonna be kick the can down the road. I'm not saying it's gonna go away, but I honestly think that future,
which is very good news.
It's there now. Yeah. I have had interviewed a bunch of people within the industry, either on the radio side or here on the Stogie Geek show, where they've said it's not. They said you're crazy, they're there, and so I guess if we could probably spend 45 minutes going back and forth, talk about what if. It's all beyond our power, for the most part, especially when you get a industry like Cigar Rights of America trying to get a petition, and then people trying to get once you start talking petitions at any level, and I'm not picking on that organization, just this is a cigar show, right? So once you start doing that, people wait I don't
put the brakes on.
They always put the brakes on politics, sex, and religion. Yeah. You know what I mean? So let's have this conversation to make it productive, not non-FDA.
Okay, so where do you want to start? Because that was about a 20-minute lead.
Well, there's one thing that I don't have is word economy when I ask questions. Right.
Nice.
Right. Let's start where you.
Yeah. So we'll break this down.
Start where you want to.
So you want to start with me? We can do that. So basically, I've been in the industry for about 5 years now, working at Ale House. I started there. I kind of just walked in off the street, basically, and said, "Hey, I heard you guys were looking for somebody." Unfortunately, they actually were. That wasn't just a rumor. And they brought me on board, and I've been with them ever since. And it's always I have fun when I'm at work. That's one thing I can say, is that I actually enjoy my job.
Sure.
Which is something that not a lot of
But you
people
brought to
say.
the table legitimate passion and knowledge base of cigars coming in. You just weren't any old Joe off the street. You were already
well, I had been
well-schooled
smoking cigars
individual.
for quite some time now.
Right.
But the good news is that I have a really in-depth business background. My dad's owned his own business since before I was even born.
Yep.
So, it was one of those
Side
deals
note, I
where-
actually ran into your dad.
Did you?
Yep, I ran into.
Where'd you see him?
I plead the fifth. I don't know. I don't know if he was supposed to be there. It wasn't anybody's bad. It was a cigar shop, but
Putting somebody through college,
yeah.
no?
you know, but yeah, and when he introduced himself, I'm like, I know of you.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh boy, oh boy.
I've heard the stories.
And I've sat down with him and spoken about his business and business model and stuff like that. And you know, so you come from a family.
I've learned a lot from
your
him.
father has a very successful business there, and you know, it and with that has its own challenges for sure.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that it's what I know about business isn't from like a college course. It's from actually seeing my dad be able to do it.
Yep.
And knowing kind of what works and what doesn't work, and taking it from there, I try to apply it to everything I do, like even social media stuff. Like last night, we gave away the TV live on Facebook for our Super Bowl raffle.
Full disclosure, I did end the conversation with your dad saying, if my dad owned a business, why aren't you involved in your dad's business? Like I told him, I'm like, you know, do you need a son? Like, cause
He's got two. He's got two. That's the sad thing. So I've always been a little bit more of a sleeper-inner, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And his business, you got to be awake. But it's not even that. It's the food business is hard, man.
Sure.
It
Every business.
sucks. Every business is hard, but the food business is a special level of torture.
Yeah.
And it's just, I enjoy the cigar business. There's basically no backstabbing in this business. There really there's
What,
a lot
in the cigar business?
Not really.
Oh.
No, there's not.
Okay. All right. That's cool.
I mean, there's a little bit of it in any business. It's going to happen. But, you know, the people in the cigar industry are much more friendly. They're much more receptive.
Yep.
They're easier to do business with. They're easier to hang around with. And I like that aspect of it. My little brother, I say little, he's 6'5". My little brother was like Rob Gronkowski in the flesh.
I have a little brother who's 10 years younger than me, and he's 6'4". So
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, it's like living with a shaved gorilla. But he's an artist, man. He's not. He never got into the whole business thing. He's actually going to Emerson College right now for like lighting and stage design. He's an artist. That's what he does.
Right.
Nice.
Right. So you had the business background. You know what it's like to the sacrifice that business owners have to go through and stuff like that.
I mean, that's why I've seen my dad sell since I was little. You know, my dad didn't get to where he was by sitting back and waiting patiently. My dad would kick down the front door of a supermarket, walk to the back, and go, "Who's the manager here?"
You have to. You
know, and that's really watching that is how I've gotten to where I am.
That's like Joe D, right? You're a Providence firefighter. Is your business hot, Joe D?
Oh man.
Right. First of all, if there's a call and there's smoke showing, everybody's trying to get out. Joe D's gonna jump in.
Yeah.
You know?
Nature of the business.
You know, it's so every business has its challenges for sure.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think about the future?
You know, the future is going to be interesting. There are a lot of cigar companies now that are starting to have trouble and that have gotten themselves into a little bit of hot water just because, and again, I don't want to go on the FDA, but because of that, they weren't keeping a lot in stock to ship out to people. So there's a lot of companies now that are facing a lot of back order issues.
Great point.
And right now with where the industry is, like back in the day, if you wanted a Liga Privada, there was Liga Privada and that was it. But now there's alternatives to everything. So it's kind of become well, if you can't get this, I have this. So I think there's a lot of companies that are going to get themselves into some hot water. And I think there's a lot of companies that are going to take that opportunity and thrive with it.
It's actually a good observation because I think that type of demeanor spreads past the newer cigar companies as well.
Yeah.
Like even some of the older cigar companies who've had a head start. When I mean by head start, some of your classic facings get into that.
Yeah.
And it's tough to find that balance. It's tough, especially when it's a product that has to have its yearly harvest, go through its time component of producing something with smoking, blend component to market it, to get it out, distribution and shipping.
Yep.
Yeah.
Logistics.
There's so much more
of
out there.
that.
There's so much more choice that you really have to stay on your game all the time.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think 5-6 years out? You think it's what do you think?
5-6 years out is going to be interesting. I think you're going to see a lot of either cigar companies opening up their own retail locations. it's gonna be interesting to see who stays powerful as far as the cigar companies go, and who's really gonna rise up and seize opportunities. Like if you look at somebody like Phil. Phil was a little guy. He was a very small fish in a very large pond, and now he's really climbing that ladder. He's making a name for himself, and I think you're going to see a lot of people doing that. And the climate's going to change a little bit, whereas now necessarily maybe the bigger companies are going to become smaller and scale down a little bit, and then you're going to see somebody like Phil rise up.
I think you're going to see a lot of consolidation.
Yeah,
I see
the consolidation's already happening.
I think that
I see brick and mortar consolidation, and those brick and mortars that are poised with an online presence. I see those guys as being on the top of the hill when all the dust settles. You need to have that component. You need to have the online component to combat those online sales that. I don't know. I don't see them going away anytime soon.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I think it's gonna. I think by the next state of the what does he call it? State of the Union.
State of the Union.
The State of the Cigar Union over on the Cigar Authority podcast that he usually does it during the first couple of weeks of January.
Correct. Yep.
It's a fascinating 20-something minute read.
Yeah.
That. About his perspective. He's been doing it for years.
Yeah, he's forgotten more about the cigar industry than I know. So
yeah, for sure. And
if you're not paying attention to that, man, and reading between the lines, and you're gonna fall short. It's you have to forecast ahead and plan accordingly.
Yeah.
If you're not poised for that future move,
Yeah, I think 2018 IPCPR we're gonna see a lot of the buzzword. If we could fast forward, say it's 3 weeks before IPCPR and we're here doing Stogie Geeks, I think it's going to be the buzzword of that is going to be a lot of collaboration.
Yeah,
it started already.
Yep.
Look at what AJ's doing.
Yeah, I mean a lot of collaboration, and then
AJ, for sure. He's with everybody.
One of the best blenders in the world, and everybody's been kind of taking advantage of his knowledge and saying, "Hey, why don't you come do something with us, or do something with this guy?" And
yeah, a lot of
what we do.
A lot of like I said, a lot of collaboration, and then it'll change to a lot of consolidation for sure with the companies, different companies either merging together. Or rebranding themselves together.
Yeah. Which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing.
Because I know, have you traveled outside the United States? You ever traveled outside the United States? Okay. Have you ever go to a cigar shop outside the United States, stuff like that? Correct me if I'm wrong with places that I've been experienced to. In some countries, you get a box. Say you want to buy a 5-pack, and they're different. In the 5-pack, it's branded not of the company, the cigar company, and you don't know what you're getting. You don't really know what you're buying. Like if you want to say you're going to go to Japan, right, or China, and you're going to get some Cubans, right? In some places, and I don't know the logistical rules with that, but you buy a 5-pack and you get all different ones. But when you look at the branding and boxing, it's nothing to do with cigars. You know what I mean? Did you ever have experience with that?
No.
Yeah, they'll have like a Asian woman on there, some writing. I don't read the language, so it could say Cohiba or something like that. You know what I mean? But I just found it very, and I wonder that if it would ever come to that, to where the creativity element, and this is the point of my conversation, to where the creativity element that we all enjoy. Box presentation, how they're going to market, what the shtick is, with the cigar.
Joe, we touched on
items to come along with it.
We touched on it last week that the time frame by August, 30% of all boxes are going to have the warning labels. That's absolutely going to be integral and take away from that artwork. And we'll be knowing, appreciate, and love now about cigar art and the boxes, and that's it's an interesting component that is coming. It's not an if. It definitely is. So curious. And then, also moving forward about Jake had talked about the stock for various companies, and do they go heavy or they hold back a little bit because of that factor?
Yeah.
So and then if you're not allowed to express yourself through branding and advertising, my biggest question is, what do you got?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's fast forward, and I'm not trying to use a somber tone and paint a dismal picture, but let's just fast forward 10 years from now, right? And what are we gonna do? We're all gonna be young enough to still consume cigars and hopefully be here, right?
Yep.
What's it gonna be like if you go and you purchase a Drew Estate Liga,
But it just comes in a plain white box.
But it
that says Liga Privat on it, and then you open the box and it's a plain white band that says Liga Privat on it.
Right, like what's that gonna?
And then you go to get a Monte Cristo white label. It's in the same white box with the same white label. It just says Monte Cristo white label on it.
Right, like what's that gonna do to the industry?
Yeah.
Because packaging and presentation, I often spoke to your dad about that, when we were talking about business, about his product being next to someone else's, and
what sets you apart?
What sets you apart? Like, when the consumer, can you imagine if it was watered down like that?
Because I have a lot of people that'll walk into the humidor and they might not know a whole lot about cigars, but they want that one because it looks nice.
Pops. Yeah.
And what happens when you take that? It looks nice away.
I think a great point, because I think if you take what's nice away, basic economics would tell you that product loyalty would be tighter. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, I'm not picking on Drew. I'm just trying to use something that the Stogie Geeks listener could.
Well, here, tell you what. Switch to something like the La Aurora Preferidos.
Okay, sure.
One of my favorite lines out there. They come in these really gorgeous tubes.
Yep.
And one of the reasons why I sell a lot of them is because they come in a beautiful, beautiful packaging.
All different
so
colors.
If somebody wants to give a present to somebody, or somebody wants to smoke something that makes them feel special,
Certainly. Yep.
they're going to gravitate towards something like that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when you take that away? Are those people necessarily going to remain loyal to La Aurora, or are they going to say, that's kind of expensive for what it is now that it doesn't come in the fancy packaging?
Right. And when I have this conversation offline with either cigar shop owners or people who own companies, they're like, "You really gave a lot of thought about this." I says, "No, it's just I went to school for economics, so
we're just spitballing.
So
forecasting ahead, man.
We've studied this stuff in college, like where blends are the same, and let's call a spade. People wrote books about this. The books about the future, and it's amazing how back in the 50s they say, okay, it's 1984, or back in look at Back to the Future movie, Back to the Future 2, which took place in 2050. Like, that time's already going, and I don't know if, like, how my brain works when I watch that movie now, if it's on or whatever, and I watch that. They weren't really that far off.
No.
You know what I mean? You got the hoverboard, the safe thing, and all the
cell
different,
phone, yeah.
All the crazy things that, think about it, not to go off on, this kid's going to email me with the hate mail. I'm going off on a tangent, right?
Yeah.
But not, how he holds a newspaper and it changed? That's nothing more than a tablet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if it's nothing more than a tablet,
Exactly.
Coming from the news industry, working for a news station before, or being, even now where I'm part of a news station lineup, being on the radio, I'm sure they wrote two versions of yesterday's game. You know what I mean? Like, they wrote two versions of yesterday's game to get a head start and this and that, and then that's the one we're going with.
Yeah.
Because I know that, when we do radio promos at our level, and if we're going to talk, that's product specific with that, and it's dependent on an outcome that's past the point, but you do your promos before because you want people to tune in, you're going to do two different versions of your promo.
Right.
So at my level, you have to do that, let alone bringing this back to the Stogie Geeks show. What are they going to do for promos? Like 10 years from now, is it going to be flat and boring? Is it, or is the creativity component going to really come out?
Wrap up,
and then do that. I just think it's just a fascinating, I don't want to paint a dismal picture.
Yeah.
But, if you follow the bouncing ball from an economic perspective, logically.
Well, it would definitely be sad because, especially with the direction everything's going, and like I said, Drew Estate is the king of marketing. They're the king of the artwork. They've got Subculture Studios. They do some really amazing stuff. What happens to Drew Estate when you take that away?
Right.
I mean, they're obviously still a huge player in the cigar game. They're still going to be around, but it's not going to have the same feel to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Joe D, you have anything else you want to add to the segment?
That's pretty much covers it, man. Ready to get into the cigar reviews? Pretty excited.
Jake, you did a great job pinch hitting for Phil.
Well done.
You did a great job.
Well
you
done,
did
brother.
a great job. When we come back, we're going to review our Stogies of the Week. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Stay tuned.